Caitlin, are you there?
I am. Thanks so much for having me.
You got it. So I'm going to bring in your husband, fiance. Who is it?
Fiance, yes.
Fiance. All right. I'm going to bring in your fiance, Rob. Rob, you there?
Yes, I'm here. How you doing?
All right. What's up, homie? All right. So I got Rob and Caitlin. Y'all both on?
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for calling in. How can I help? Let's go. Caitlin, you go first, and then Rob, you respond. I like to make it as dramatic as possible.
Perfect. So my fiance and I are both parents to children from previous marriages. We both have primary custody of our children. So we have a full house and are working through all of the craziness that comes with a blended family. So his son is 6 and my children are 5 and 2. And so the reason that we're calling today is that his son has had some significant behavioral issues predating our relationship, but the growing risk is becoming more prominent as time passes and our kids spend more time together. Just for an example, a couple of weeks ago, all in the same week, his son had hit the babysitter's daughter, got in trouble for physically bullying 2 kids at school, and then even made a death threat toward another student. And at home, he's just disrespectful, doesn't listen, and will lie and try to manipulate us. And while he hasn't physically seriously harmed my kids in the past, there have been instances of hitting or kicking and verbally just being not nice to them pretty regularly. So our question is, I guess my question, while I commend my fiance's efforts to correct and frankly figure out what the issues are, can I or should I continue to subject my children to the reputational, emotional, and physical risk that we see in his son?
I've got a pretty firm answer on that, but Rob, hop in here.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, tell me. So Caitlin, I don't want to say put her version on, but like told me the story. Fill in the gaps for me.
So everything that she said is valid. We have been working with my son. I mean, I've been working with my son since he was born. He has a very when me and his mother got divorced, the family home situation for him obviously was torn to pieces, and so until he was 5, he would go back and forth every 3 months from my house to his mother's house. And so he was getting a lot of parallel parenting due to animosity between the two of us.
What's parallel parenting?
So like, you know how, there's co-parenting where you work together, and then parallel parenting is when we can't, there's no communication. Oftentimes it's the complete opposite of what I would do is what she would do. For example, his bedtime there is at midnight. They don't have dinner. They only snack until midnight. And here bedtime's 8:30 and we eat dinner and then we go to, and then that's it.
I have on my notes here. Let me see. So, that he drowned a pet. Tell me about that.
Oh, so both of the boys were down. We have livestock, and both of the boys were down at the barn, and we have turkeys. And so they had, I don't know, we don't know for sure whose idea it was, but they were like, well, let's see if they can swim, because the turkeys are, they take well to the kids and they're very social animals. And so someone, we weren't there physically, but someone had put one of the turkeys in water and it drowned and died. And then that one was pulled out, and then someone was holding the second turkey. And then I walked outside to call them in, and the barn is pretty far from the house. So I called them in, and I guess whoever was holding the last bird dropped the bird into the water and then left, and both of them died. Now, there was a lot of remorse there for that. I mean, both of the boys cried a lot. And they understood the loss of life, and they were really disappointed because they spent every day playing with the turkeys. So that's that backstory.
What diagnostics does your son have? Surely you're working with a professional.
Yeah. So his pediatrician said that. He said that he does have severe case of ADHD, which I grew up with that as well, and I still have that.
Wait, you said your pediatrician. Have you sat down and got a psych eval for this kid?
So our psych evals for kids in the greater Colorado or greater Denver area, including Colorado Springs, are 5 to 8 months on a wait list. So even with a referral, we have been unable to get him in to a licensed psychiatrist or psychologist. And I've called, Caitlin could attest to this. I've called at least, since we've been trying to get him in, I've called well over 20, and I'm on the wait list for at least 6.
Even with the violent outbursts?
Yes. They still will not, they won't prioritize or anything. I've tried, and I've told them the full story.
Just school referral?
And even with school referral, I have letters from his school that I share with his pediatrician, and but even with those letters, I still, aside from taking him to a hospital, which I did talk to them, but they also were saying that that's more of like it's non-emergent.
Yeah, it's an acute thing. I wouldn't do anything.
Yeah.
Sheesh.
So it's like as a father to my son, I'm between a rock and a hard place where the only resource that I have is his pediatrician, which is he's great, but I only have the pediatrician and then a school counselor that pays very close attention to him. And between those two, that's all I have. I've tried to get more support than that, but it's just not available.
Yeah.
And then with the wait list, me and, we're planning on moving out of state in the next 3 months. So
where to?
There's wait list we're planning on moving actually to out east to Nashville.
Okay. I would get on a list ASAP. Here's the, what does your pediatrician diagnose this kid with?
So he's been diagnosed with the ADHD, and then he said, so we're still in trials. We had to adjust the medication. We tried sertraline because there was a lot of depression and like self-harm in there.
Kid 6?
Yes. But his mother used to, when he was a baby, this was part of the reason of the divorce. His mother would do self-harm with him, like around him while I would be at work.
Right.
And I didn't catch this until I put cameras in the house.
Yeah, jeez. So
he does what she did, which is like banging heads against the wall and scratching her face and scratching his hands.
So this is a kid that's experienced a ton of trauma.
Yeah.
You need to get him into a psych eval. You know that, so I'm not going to beat you up over that. Yeah. I can't believe in the greater Denver area there's not somebody that could get him in, but I trust that you love your kid and you're trying.
Yeah.
I do know that you could find a child counselor or therapist. And I would be maniacal. Because that child all the things you're telling me suggest that kid has seen some things that this may not be the format for you to talk about all of it. Or there may be some things that you don't know, but that kid has seen darkness. Fair?
Fair.
Okay. The trajectory of this kid is very unsettling.
Yeah.
And
it's very concerning.
It is. And the challenge is his body knows one way to get what it's craving, and that is stability and connection. And it knows one way to do that. And any sort of disruption to that pattern results in these violent outbursts, and they're escalating. And I always want to look at trend lines here. And as you're talking and talking and talking and talking, this kid has been through hell. That's not why y'all called. You know that stuff. I want to encourage you, somebody, somewhere, because this kid needs to sit with a play therapist in a major, major way. And if you're moving in the next few months, I would get on the wait list ASAP. ASAP. And the second part is you can't have other children 5 and 2 in the house in this situation that aren't siblings. You just can't. Because what they're going to do is they're going to absorb that both you and your fiance's angst, that challenge, plus the attention that goes to this kid, plus the not feeling safe in their own home. A home for a child has to be the place that is ollie oxen free, like home base where they can go touch and say, I'm here. Their home is not that. They have an unsafe other kid here. And I know that's hard to hear, man, but I couldn't in good conscience tell you, yeah, just keep working on it, but I can't, man. It's an unsafe place for that 5 and 2-year-old. And if he's punching kids inside of his own home, sometimes kids act out of context. They'll be really aggressive, at school. They'll be really aggressive here. This is just expanding, and especially in his home. But yeah, that would be my recommendation, man. My number one recommendation would be you got to get with a child counselor ASAP. If you can't get with a psychiatrist, I get it, but man, got to get with a child counselor ASAP.
Okay.
And yeah, I would not feel safe about leaving a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old in this situation. Which I know has all sorts of, y'all got plans, y'all want to move, y'all want to do all this stuff. I get all that. This kid needs some stability in a major, major way.
So another layer to this that we had just talked about and would like your insight on is, and I hear you loud and clear, and it's obviously why I wrote in. But in the instance, just in make-believe land, where we are all a biologically tied together family.
What does that mean?
How would that reaction change?
What's a biologically? Oh, if y'all were
we're all the same parents to the same 3 children.
I mean, it's if I've got a 6-year-old who's experienced severe trauma in isolation of the other 2. So that's what makes this challenging. Is normally it's not just one kid that's experienced this in a family system, right? So, but hypothetically speaking, I have to do what I have to do to protect my kids. If I had to go as far as to get a 1-bedroom apartment and let this kid settle in or go get the medication he needs or be institutionalized for a while because his violence is escalating as a 6-year-old, or what most often happens is a kid experiences sexual trauma at an early age and it just flips the switch and that child becomes a child predator. And that child has to be removed from proximity to other kids, period, point blank, end of story. And it's highly, highly disruptive to entire family units if the situation arises that it only happens to one kid. I haven't worked with I'm just being honest. I haven't worked with families where it's only happened to one kid like that. It's usually everybody's in a big mess when things begin to escalate like this.
So with the recommendation of, or is it basically the recommendation to split the family, or is it like how would we navigate something like that? Like it's because we don't have. It's not like we have it's not like we have our parents down the road, or it's not like we really have any, not necessarily easy, but any real efficient way to do that.
None of what's happening is going to be efficient. Every single thing that is before you is going to be hard.
And then with the implications of doing that type of lifestyle to help with my son, which is, something's got to give. And I mean, I'm going to continue to work on it and everything. But, you know, I mean, if it takes him, you know, I mean, however long it takes him, I mean, what are the implications on the relationship and the family as a whole? I mean, with us not, I mean, how, you know, I mean, if she had to move out of state to go with her parents or something.
Well,
I mean,
hold on. Well, number one, let's get everything in the right order, because everything's getting all jumbled together.
Okay.
Number one, y'all aren't married.
Yeah.
Okay. So y'all are living together, and you've put all these kids in a box together. But you have your romantic relationship, which I could almost guarantee you is strained to some degree. Y'all would be supernatural. Maybe y'all are. It would be supernatural if it wasn't strained. And then on the other hand, I have a little boy who with every breath he takes is screaming, "Somebody save me," because I can't. And then I've got a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old who are just wide-eyed, not knowing where the next scary thing is going to come from. All of these are in one big box with their separate issues. And if you try to say, well, what about if I do this, then she has to move in with mom. And then if she decides as your girlfriend, I don't have enough money to move to Nashville, well, that's an issue that y'all need to decide about your romantic relationship. Your priority, Rob, and Caitlin, I'll tell you this, like, I'd love to see y'all get married and these family come together and all the kids get all the help they need and everything be wonderful. I'd love that. Rob's number one priority right now is his son, period, end of story. And Rob, I know that is devastating. It's exhausting. It's financially maddening. It's unfathomably expensive. You also have the trauma that his mom and whoever she paraded through the house helped create it. Like all of that, I get it. But it is. This is me just loving you enough to say, here's reality. And Caitlin, your number one priority are the 5-year-old and the 2-year-old, your 2 little baby kids. They have to be safe. They have to have as Becky Kennedy says, a sturdy, safe mom before y'all decide to blend families. And it almost feels like there's this, like, oh, you're drowning and I'm drowning. If we lock arms together, maybe we can float. And that's not how this is going to play. It won't play out well. I talk too much and y'all got real quiet. So what are y'all thinking?
So I know that like none of this is nothing that we haven't been thinking, nothing that we haven't considered. It's just hard, I think, to accept it. Just because we did both individually fight so hard for our children and obviously we'll continue to fight for our children and make them our number one priorities. We were just hoping to be able to do that together in the long run.
I get that. And I don't think that's out of the question. I really don't.
So with that being said, with you saying you don't think it's out of the question, I mean, could you elaborate on that? I mean, I don't know.
How long have y'all been together?
I don't really know how to go from here.
2 years.
Yeah, probably 2 years now.
How long have y'all lived together?
A year.
Well, probably about 12 months.
Okay. And how long has your son, 6-year-old, not seen bio mom?
He goes for the major holidays. He's scheduled to go visit his bio mom in about 2 weeks, and he'll be there for roughly 8 days.
Does
and
his
then
behavior
all of his trips.
Does his behavior begin to escalate in the weeks leading up to, and especially on the way back?
Yes, leading up to and on the way back. Yes, the school and at home, everyone has reported that there's a pretty significant impact on his behavior.
All right, so I need you as dad to hear that, Behavior is a language. You got a 6-year-old body saying, please don't do this to me. And at some point, that may mean you got to go back to court and get full custody of this kid.
I have full custody, but
Okay.
I would have to somehow she would have to have supervised visitation or something like that. I mean,
Or
she already has, very minimal.
then why do you put this little boy back in an unsafe situation?
Yeah. It's the legal hoops to jump through on that are a lot. And I'm not saying that's not something that I should do.
I know, but
because I do.
Just look at what this little 6-year-old body's trying to tell you.
Yeah.
And at some point, he's going to circle around and say, Dad, you saw these videos. You knew some of the stories. The child counselor told you the rest. Why'd you keep putting me back in there, man?
Yeah.
And that same conversations with Caitlin and her 5 and 2-year-old. Mom, why'd you put us in this? So at the end of the day, let's look at it this way. Relationally, y'all are really struggling. Y'all want it to work, and I want it to work for you. Parenting, we had this vision of how this was going to work, and it's going to work great, and we're going to get some stability and some safety, and that's not working. And so as parents, what we have to do is be the adults and back out and say, all right, this plan that we wanted to work is not going to work. So it's not going to be efficient. It's going to be infinitely more expensive. One of us may have to move, and we may have to be long distance for a season. We may have to live in an apartment instead of a house. We may have to get some help. We may have to move closer to family, whatever the thing is, because the goal is mom and dad have to be stable as individuals in their family context, and these kids have to be safe and get the care they need. And then we can start talking about blending families. Now, if this was a moody teenager, we'll work through that. This is a violent child who is clearly, and by the way, when I say violent child, I'm not saying they're the problem, but I am saying that behavior's got to be dealt with downstream. Okay? I love this little boy. I want to hug him. Like, just hearing about him, I want to hug him. With all my guts, I want to hug this little boy because I can just imagine he's been through hell.
That's what's hard about it is when, there's a lot of things that are hard about it, but that's one of the hardest things for me as his dad is, I raised him from, his mother didn't breastfeed. She didn't want to take the time or the effort. I fed him from day one all the way through to now. And it's really hard seeing him, when he was 3 and even 4, he hadn't really developed these issues they didn't really come to fruition. But then now that he's getting older, he's forming his own thoughts. He's really he's trying to process things. And he is one of the most loving, kind, amazing kids that anyone could imagine. And then we have just these, he'll flip and and it's something as simple as, well, somebody didn't want to share something with me, so I pushed them.
Right.
And it's just, but he'll spend hours, 2, 3, 4 hours a day, not every day, but quite frequently playing with Caitlin's 2-year-old. And they're like best friends. And then, the next day or even later that evening, he'll be like, "Ooh, gross, a baby."
Right.
And I'm like, buddy, you just gave her a kiss on the forehead and told her you loved her an hour ago. And now you're saying, "Ooh, gross, a baby. I don't want you in my room. Don't touch me." Like, I don't, it's really challenging to navigate.
And the challenge for an adult, often working with a young kid, is taking our adult rational mind and dropping it into a body that growth-wise, hormonally, trauma-wise, and just skills. Just having the skills on how to navigate feelings that feel like jet fuel.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have that. Doesn't have a model of that. And he's got a little body that is still trying to figure out where mom is because their heartbeats are connected.
And that's the other tough thing too, is with the dynamic, the family dynamic that we've had over the past year of living together. I mean, there's not a sentence that he says to Caitlin that doesn't include something along the line. I mean, he calls her mom. Her kids call me dad. He won't leave for the bus without trying to get a kiss or a hug or something. And I mean, like last night, me and him spent the night or the evening because the kids and mom were in town, and we spent the evening cleaning, and he was just excited about how happy she was going to be when she got home and saw the house clean. And it's just, there's the logical understanding of like, okay, well, if, given his current state, the logical thing would be to, separate him from, or separate basically. But then also I'm worried about the emotional impacts, not only on him, but her kids as well. And
listen, all of I get that, totally get that. And there's no question it'll be disruptive. No question about that. But what we're not dealing with in this particular moment, what we're not dealing with is impact, emotional feelings. We're dealing with safety. And safety has to trump. It has to come over the top. And if we see escalating behaviors and unsafe behaviors, and suddenly he's went from shoving a kid to closed fist, hitting a kid, went from accidentally drowning an animal to I'm just going to drop the other one in there and see what happens. Of course, there's remorse on the other side. I don't think he's a sociopath. But I think that the impact mom has had on his life, his bio mom, and her demons, and her handing those demons over to her son, literally. I think he needs some professional intervention ASAP. This may be as simple as, honestly, this one will be tough. This one will be tough, but it may be as straightforward as him sitting with a child play therapist and learning some skills. Sitting with an occupational therapist and sitting with some professionals who can teach him some skills, teach you some skills. You doing the hard thing about the legal matters, he doesn't need to be around mom anymore. If mom is not safe, if mom's home is not safe, if the men that mom brings into the home are not safe, the baby doesn't need to be there anymore. Or 6-year-old doesn't need to be there anymore, period. There may be a season of separation. And there may be some more angst on the heels of that. We're dealing with safety here, not feelings and emotions. Safety. Once he begins to learn safety, we don't hit other people. We don't assault other people. We don't hurt animals. We don't respond to our lack of power with violence. Now we're going to talk about what does it look like to blend a family. A family that's experienced trauma, a family that's experienced loss, a family that's experienced all those things. Guys, and I know, listen, I'd hug you both if you were here. I know this is hard. And like Caitlin said, I think this is something y'all have been wrestling with. And so my promise on the shows, I'm going to tell you the truth. And I hate it for you. I hate this is what I'm having to pass along. And I hate the state of child psychiatric care that you can't get in and see somebody when you got a baby that's, your child is hurting. But find a counselor, find a therapist, ask your school counselor if they can refer you to somebody. There's going to be people in the local network that your school counselor can send you to that maybe it's just a licensed marriage and family therapist, a counselor, a social worker, somebody, a licensed play therapist that can teach your kids some skills. Whew. And forensically, get some info on what he's actually experienced, because my gut tells me he's been through hell. Your kids are lucky that y'all love them. I'm proud of y'all for fighting for them, but the fight's just begun.